I'm not leaving you here. Those 6 words spoken by an 18-year-old boy standing alone in the dark, in the middle of Hell's Angels territory, holding a bleeding woman he had never met, would change everything. Not just his life, not just one small town in Tennessee, everything. He had every reason to drive away, every single reason. Third, he stayed anyway. If you've ever done the right thing when it cost you something real, this story is for you. Subscribe to this channel, drop your city in the comments right now so I can see how far this story travels, and stay with me until the very end. You won't regret it. Logan Hayes did not think of himself as brave. He thought of himself as a mechanic. At 18 years old, he had already been working at his late father's garage for 3 years since the age of 15. Whereas when his grandmother decided he was old enough to stop grieving and start doing something useful with his hands. Was how she operated. His grandmother, Edna Hayes, she did not believe in sitting still with your pain. Oh, she believed in moving through it, even if your hands were shaking the whole time. Never really stopped shaking after his parents died. He just learned to hold a wrench tight enough that nobody could tell. Tennessee was the kind of town that felt exactly the same every single day, the same cracked pavement on the main road, the same 3 stoplight beats that had needed replacing since 2009, faces at the same diner every morning, drinking the same bad coffee and complaining about the same things. People found comfort in that. Logan found it suffocating, a quiet way he never told anyone about because there was nobody to tell. His grandmother was 73 and had already carried enough of his problems. His friends, what few he had, were mostly still in high school, finishing up the senior year Logan had quietly walked away from after everything fell apart with his father's estate. He had made a choice, school or the garage. He couldn't afford both. There's the garage because someone had to, and because if he was being honest with himself, which Logan always was, even when it hurt, the garage was the only place in the world where he still felt close to his father. Of motor oil and rubber, the particular way an engine turned over when you'd fixed something that had been broken. Heck, that hum, that moment of something dead coming back to life. It was the only kind of resurrection Logan had ever been able to trust. Started, or rather, the night that changed everything started on a Thursday in late October. And remembered it as a Thursday, not because he kept a calendar or a journal or any of those things people said you were supposed to keep. He remembered it as a Thursday because Thursday was the night he always drove the long route home. As people took Route 9 back from the garage straight shot, into minutes, no complications. Logan took the old mountain road that curved up through the forest preserve and that hadn't been repaved since the early 90s, and that even the locals called the Forgotten Road without really knowing why they called it that. Because it was quiet. He took it because 10 hours of other people's, the clanging of metal, complaints of customers, the radio his assistant mechanic, Dale, kept tuned to a country station. Logan hated he needed 15 minutes of nothing. Thursday, it was raining. Not a soft rain, a Tennessee mountain rain, which is a different creature, entirely heavy and purposeful, of rain that makes you feel like the sky has a grudge against something and has decided the entire earth should suffer for it, and was driving slow. Not because he was cautious, he knew every turn on that road by memory, but because in the rain, trees closed in differently. The shadows moved differently. And Logan, who had been driving that route for 2 years, had developed the particular habit of country people everywhere, paying attention to when things felt different, even if you couldn't say why. Something felt different that night. He had been on the road for about 6 minutes when he heard it. A sound exactly, not at first, more like a disturbance in the rain, a frequency underneath the falling water that didn't belong to weather or wind or any animal he recognized. His hands tightened on the wheel without him deciding to tighten them. He slowed down, and then he heard it clearly. A scream, a short scream. Not the kind of sound that could be explained away as a fox or a bird or branches snapping under the weight of water. This was a human voice, female, and it carried in it something that Logan would later describe to his grandmother. as the sound of someone trying not to die. He stopped the truck. There for 4 seconds, he counted them. Afterward, there's 4 seconds that felt like 4 separate lifetimes while the rain beat against the windshield, and his brain ran through every reasonable argument for why he should keep driving. Mountain Road was Hell's Angels territory. Everyone in Red Hollow knew that. It wasn't a rumor or an exaggeration or the kind of legend that small towns manufacture to keep teenagers away from certain roads. The fact, stated plainly and without drama by every adult Logan had ever known. Hell's Angels Tennessee chapter operated out of a compound 20 miles north of Red Hollow, and they used the mountain road the way a business uses a private driveway, with the understood expectation that you did not enter without an invitation and you did not linger without a very good reason and a very quick explanation. Logan had neither a reason nor an explanation. He had a truck, a rain-soaked road, and someone screaming in the woods. He reached over, grabbed his flashlight from the glove compartment, the big heavy one his father had kept in every vehicle they ever owned, one that could double as a weapon if things went a particular direction, and he opened the door. The rain hit him immediately, cold and total, soaking through his jacket in what felt like a single second. There, he stood at the edge of the road and pointed the flashlight into the trees. "Oh?" he called out. His voice came back to him, swallowed by the rain and the dark. Others, quieter than the first sound, they were smaller and more desperate. Again, "Help, please, somebody." Logan went into the woods. He found her about 40 yards from the road in a small clearing where two old oaks had fallen together at an angle, creating a rough natural shelter. She was leaning against the base of one of the fallen trunks. Even in the rain and the unsteady beam of his flashlight, Logan could see the dark stain spreading from her left leg. She was wearing a black leather vest over a flannel shirt, both soaked through. The vest had patches on it. Patches Logan didn't try to read yet, because there was blood on the ground underneath her leg. And that was the only information that mattered right now. Up when his light found her face. For a single moment, there was pure animal terror in her expression. A woman alone in the woods at night, and vulnerable, suddenly illuminated by a stranger she couldn't see past the flashlight. "Wait," Logan said immediately, lowering the beam so it wasn't blinding her. "I heard you. I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Logan. I stopped my truck on the road. I'm not anybody. I just heard you." The woman stared at him. She was somewhere in her mid-40s, he guessed. Dark hair plastered against her forehead by the rain. All was set with the particular tightness of someone who had been clenching it against pain for a long time. "How long have you been out here?" Logan asked, moving closer. Slowly, the way he approached stray dogs at the garage. No sudden movements. Loud sounds, just presence. "I don't." Her voice broke. She steadied it. "I'm not sure, a while." Logan crouched down a few feet away and looked at her leg without touching it. Even without training, he could see what the problem was. The angle was wrong. Not a clean break. Something had happened with a force and an impact. And her leg had absorbed it in a way a leg was not supposed to absorb anything. "Like," he said, "not a question." She closed her eyes briefly. "How?" "My bike went off the road about a quarter-mile back. I managed to get this far before." She stopped, swallowed. "I couldn't anymore." Logan nodded slowly, already running through his options, cataloging what he had: flashlight, the basic toolkit in his truck bed, the old flannel blanket. His grandmother insisted he keep in the cab for emergencies. The length of bungee cord Dale had left in the back last week. "I need to move you," Logan said, "but I can't do that until I stabilize that leg." "Hey?" "I'm not a doctor. I'm a mechanic. But I know how things are supposed to be held together. I know you can't get into my truck the way you are right now." She looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. It was not a grateful question. It was a direct one, almost suspicious. The question of someone who had learned that strangers offering help usually had a reason that showed up later. "You're hurt," Logan said. "Is there any other reason that matters right now?" Something shifted in her expression. Trust, not yet. But the armor cracked just slightly. The old paint cracks when the temperature changes suddenly. My name is Rebecca, she said. Okay, Rebecca, I'm going to take off my jacket and we're going to do something about that leg. Can you stay still for me? I've been staying still for God knows how long, she said, with a ghost of something that might in different circumstances have been humor. I think I can manage a little longer. Logan had fixed enough broken things in his life to understand a fundamental truth that most people never thought about. The difference between something that could be saved and something that was beyond saving was almost always about time. How fast you assessed, how fast you acted, how well you resisted the urge to panic. Because panic was the enemy of precision, and precision was the only thing standing between a broken thing and a destroyed one. He worked fast, he worked quiet. He used his own jacket into strips, along with the straightest branch he could find in the dark and the bungee cord from his truck bed to create a rough splint. Not inelegant, it was not medical, but it was functional on the corners. And Logan had learned from his father that functional was always more important than elegant when the alternative was doing nothing. He made a sound once, a sharp, involuntary hiss when he secured the splint. Then she went quiet again, holding herself together with a discipline that Logan, even at 18, recognized as the discipline of someone who had learned to control their pain a long time ago. "I carry you," Logan said when he was done. I don't care what you weigh. I've been lifting engine blocks since I was 15. Sir? You ready?" She looked up at him. The rain had eased, slightly still falling, but the fury had gone out of it. The way thunderstorms sometimes went quiet right in the middle of themselves, as if catching their breath. "Before you do this," Rebecca said. Her voice was different now, lower, more deliberate. "You need to know something. Okay, you see this vest?" Logan looked at the patches. He read them now, in the light from his flashlight. He understood what they said. He understood what they meant. Red Hollow was a small town, and small towns knew their neighbors, even the ones they were afraid of. He looked back at her face. "Yeah," he said. "I see it. You know what it means? I know what people say it means. What people say is usually right." In this case, Rebecca said carefully, "My husband is Cole Callahan. He is the president of the Hells Angels Tennessee chapter. But the people who did this to me, who ran me off that road, they did it because of who he is. The matters, which means the moment you get involved in this, you become involved in something that could get you hurt." She paused. Or worse. Logan held her gaze. The rain fell between them. In the distance, deeper in the woods, something moved, a branch cracking, an animal startled by the weather. "Are you telling me to leave you here?" Logan asked. Rebecca was quiet for a moment that seemed to last much longer than it was. "I'm telling you," she said finally, "what you're walking into." Logan nodded slowly. He looked down at his improvised splint, at the blood on the ground, the rain soaking through her flannel shirt, at the way she was holding herself, that careful, cold stillness that was the physical expression of someone using everything they had left just to stay conscious. He looked back up at her. "I'm not leaving you here," he said. It was not a heroic statement. He didn't say it loudly or dramatically. The way he said most things, plainly, directly, performance, as if it were simply the most obvious fact available to him in that moment, and the only appropriate response to that fact was to act on it. Claire closed her eyes. "Okay," she said quietly. "Hey." Logan picked her up. Getting Rebecca back to the truck was not easy, and was not quick, and was not anything that would look impressive if you were watching it from the outside. It was just hard work, the kind of hard work that was mostly just putting one foot in front of the other in the rain and the dark, while carrying something heavy and fragile and trying very hard not to slip on the wet leaves covering the forest floor. Rebecca didn't complain. She held on. She focused, you could tell, on breathing the slow, deliberate rhythm of someone managing pain through concentration rather than medication. Halfway back to the road, she spoke. "You're really a mechanic?" she said. "There was," Logan said. "I took over the garage after he died." "How old are you?" 18. A pause. "How long ago did your father die?" 3 years. She didn't say she was sorry. Well, he was grateful for that. He had heard enough sorries to last a lifetime, and they had never once made anything better. "This is going to complicate your life," Rebecca said. "No warning this time." Something quieter than a warning, almost an apology. My life was already complicated, Logan said. Watch your head, there's a low branch. She ducked. But they reached the truck. Logan called his uncle first. Well, Raymond was his father's younger brother, a 50-something former Army medic who had come back to Red Hollow after 2 tours and opened a hardware store and never talked about the Army unless someone pressed him. And even then, not much. Raymond was the kind of man who categorized the world into things he could fix and things that weren't his business. In 20 years, Logan had never seen him refuse to help with the first category. It lasted 45 seconds. Uncle Ray, I've got a woman with a broken leg, possible internal injuries. She can't go to a hospital right now. Complicated situation. I need Dr. Mead. Raymond was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Mead, where are you? Mountain Road, marker at mile 14. I'm heading south. I'll meet you at the garage. Stop anywhere else. I know. Logan. Yeah. How complicated is complicated? Logan looked at Rebecca in the passenger seat, her eyes closed, and both hands flat on her thighs, pressing against something that probably wasn't pain and was probably fear, though she would likely never admit to either. Real complicated, Logan said. Raymond was quiet again for exactly 1 second. Drive careful, he said. Hung up. Dr. Mead was 71 years old and had retired from medicine 8 years ago. Though he had never entirely stopped practicing it, he had just stopped charging for it. A doctor who had watched his small town slowly lose access to proper medical care as clinics closed and hospitals consolidated, and people with means drove 40 minutes to the city while people without means made do or didn't. They had decided, after his retirement, that making do was not good enough for the people he had known his whole life. So he had kept his equipment and his knowledge and his willingness to show up at 11 o'clock on a rainy Thursday night when a young mechanic called through his uncle. He was at the garage when Logan pulled in. He looked at Rebecca. He looked at Logan's improvised splint. He raised his eyebrows. Improvisation, he said. Not quite a compliment and not quite a criticism. Professional assessment. I know it's not, Logan started. Better than nothing and better than a few things I've seen people with actual training do in the field. Help me get her inside. They worked for 2 hours. Logan was not in the room for most of it. Raymond pointed him toward the waiting area, which was really just the small office his father had used, a couch that still smelled faintly of motor oil, and the desk that still had his father's coffee mug on it, calcified from years of not being touched. Logan sat on the couch, his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands, and breathed. He sat with what he had done, not second-guessing it, regretting it, just acknowledging the weight of it. Her world had shifted tonight. He didn't know yet in which direction. He only knew that it had shifted and that there was nothing on the other side of that shift that looked anything like the life he had been living 24 hours ago. About what Rebecca had said. This is going to complicate your life. About the look on her face when he'd said he wasn't leaving. That particular expression, not relief, exactly. Something deeper than relief. Something that looked like a person remembering, against their will, the world could still surprise them. He thought about his father. He had been, by every account, an ordinary man, a mechanic who fixed things that were broken and asked for fair payment and went home at the end of the day. Logan remembered when he was small, watching his father stop on the side of the road to help a stranger change a tire in the rain. Not because it was his job, not because the stranger was attractive or wealthy or someone who could do something for him. Just because someone needed help and his father happened to be there. A person's character, his grandmother always said, is revealed when nobody is watching. Nobody had been watching tonight. Oh, there was no one on that road. No one who would have known if Logan had kept driving. No one who would have blamed him. No one who would even have been curious about the alternative. He had stopped anyway. He was still sitting with that, with what it meant about him, the quiet, slightly terrifying question of whether he was brave or just reckless, whether those were even different things when Raymond opened the door. She's stable, Raymond said. He sat down across from Logan in the old desk chair. Leg is broken in 2 places. She's got bruised ribs, mild concussion, and she's dehydrated. None of it is going to kill her. She's going to need rest and she can't be moved for at least a few days. He paused. Told me what happened, how she got here. He looked at his nephew steadily. Tell me who she is. I know who she is, Logan said. Raymond said. That's what I thought. He was quiet for a moment. Oh, this isn't finished. I know. Cole Callahan is going to find out what happened to his wife. I know. When he does, I know. All right. Logan looked up from his hands. His voice was steady. Tired, but steady. I know all of that, and I made the decision anyway. I'd make it again. So let's figure out what we do next, instead of talking about what I should have done differently. Raymond looked at him for a long moment. He nodded a single nod. The kind that meant all right. There was then, and you're your father's son, and I won't say I'm worried even though I am. At once. Okay, Raymond said. Then we figure out what we do next. What happened in the 3 days that followed was a delicate operation that Logan would later describe, when he was old enough to describe it without his voice, doing strange things, as the most exhausting thing he had ever in his life that had nothing to do with fear, everything to do with logistics. They couldn't take Rebecca to a hospital. A woman matching her description, with injuries consistent with a motorcycle accident, arriving at an emergency room without her husband's knowledge, a town where her husband was a known figure that was a thread that could be pulled in ways that would end badly for everyone. Herself had been explicit about this. Once she was coherent enough to be explicit about anything, Cole has to be the first person who knows. She'd said, the morning after, looking up at the low ceiling of the garage office from the cot Raymond had brought, the police, not a hospital, not anybody who will turn this into something official before he has a chance to understand what happened. Because if the wrong people hear the wrong version of this story before he does, they are going to get hurt. What's the wrong version? Logan asked. Rebecca looked at him. Her voice, when it came, was very careful and very precise. The voice of a woman who had spent years choosing words with extraordinary care. The wrong version is the one where I look like I ran away from him. Logan understood. He didn't fully understand the world she was describing, the complicated internal politics of it, the layers of loyalty and honor, and the particular codes that govern the relationships within that world. But he understood the human truth underneath it. She was protecting her husband's reputation. She was protecting her marriage. And she was trusting an 18-year-old mechanic she had known for less than 12 hours to help her do it. He didn't take that lightly. He called in every favor he had, which was not many, but was enough. Dale kept the garage running and kept his mouth shut in exchange for an extra 2 weeks of pay that Logan could not quite afford. Coordinated with Dr. Meade on Rebecca's medical care and arranged for a woman from his congregation, a retired nurse named Martha, who understood discretion the way other people understood breathing, to sit with Rebecca during the days while Logan worked and Raymond watched the perimeter. Absurd situation. Logan knew it was absurd. A teenager and a retired Army medic and a retired doctor and a retired nurse managing a secret in a small garage in Tennessee, while somewhere out there a motorcycle club president looked for his missing wife. It was absurd, and it worked for exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, the motorcycles arrived. Logan heard them before he saw them. Not everybody in Red Hollow heard them before they saw them. No motorcycles in formation, not one or two, many, was enough that the sound was less a collection of individual engines than a single sustained presence, and powerful and impossible to ignore, was not the kind of sound you could mistake for anything else. It was 7 in the evening. Logan was at the garage, under a '98 Silverado that had been giving Dale trouble all week. When the sound reached him, he felt it before he heard it clearly, a vibration in the concrete floor. He heard it pitch-con tape the corners, traveling through his back and his shoulder blades as he lay on the creeper beneath the truck. Out from under slowly. He stood up. He wiped his hands on the rag he kept tucked in his belt. Dale was standing in the bay door looking out at the road. His face had gone the color of old paper. Logan, Dale said, turning around. Yeah, Logan said. There are a lot of them. Yeah, Logan said again. How many do you think? I'm going to go outside Well, Logan said quietly. Go in the back and stay there until I come get you. Okay? Just go in the back. Dale turned around and looked at him. Dale was 34 years old and had been working at the garage since Logan's father ran it. Sure. And in that time, he had developed a particular radar for when Logan Hayes was not going to listen to reason and when pushing would only make things worse. It was clearly the second kind. Okay, Dale said. Sure. He went in the back. Logan walked out to the front of the garage. Motorcycles had stopped on the road in front of him. Though he didn't count them. There were too many to count quickly. Something felt beside the point. They were there. They were real. The engines were shutting off one by one, dying from a roar to a rumble to a silence that was somehow louder than the noise had been. And in the middle of all of them, not in front, not behind, but in the center of the formation, the way a protected person travels rather than a leader, was a man on a bike that was slightly larger and older than the rest. Off the bike slowly. He didn't hurry. He had the particular unhurried quality of someone who had learned that the speed at which you moved sent messages about how much control you had, and he was sending the message clearly and deliberately. He had complete control. He was somewhere in his mid-50s, not physically imposing in the way movie characters were physically imposing. He wasn't enormous, wasn't visibly armed, wasn't performing menace. He was just a man with gray at his temples and a road-worn face and eyes that were currently doing the kind of steady, comprehensive assessment that Logan associated with people who had spent many years making very consequential decisions. He walked across the road. He walked through the garage forecourt. He stopped about 6 feet from Logan. He looked at him for a long moment without speaking, then held his gaze and did not look away, because looking away felt like a lie he wasn't willing to tell. Logan Hayes, the man said. His voice was low, not threatening exactly, just very, very direct. Yes, sir, Logan said. Son studied him for another moment. Something moved across his face, not readable, not easy, but something. I'm Cole Callahan, he said. I believe you have my wife. She's inside, Logan said. She's okay. She was hurt bad when I found her. She's a lot better now. Dr. Mead has been looking after her. Cole absorbed this. His expression gave nothing away, but his eyes were very active, processing, us referencing, looking for the thing underneath the thing being said. He said. Logan blinked. Why what? Why did you help her, Cole said. You knew where that road was. You knew what territory that was. A woman in a Hell's Angels vest, and you could have kept driving and nobody would have blamed you, and most people would have told you keeping driving was the smart thing to do. He paused. Why didn't you? Logan thought about the question. He didn't think about it for long, because the answer was not complicated. Because she was hurt, Logan said. Cole looked at him. Cole said. That's it, Logan said. The silence between them was very long and very specific. The silence of a man recalibrating something fundamental about his understanding of a situation he had walked into, expecting to understand clearly. Cole spoke. Can I see her? He said. Yes, sir, Logan said. He gestured toward the side door that led to the garage office. Come on. Logan did not go into the room when Cole went in. He stood in the hallway outside the closed door and listened to the muffled sound of a husband and a wife having a conversation in private that they had probably been waiting days to have. He didn't make out specific words. He didn't try to see. He only stood there and heard the particular music of it, the intensity at first, edges of fear and relief and everything they had been carrying alone, really giving way to something softer and more sustained. He stood there for a long time. Then the door opened. Cole came out into the hallway. His face was different now. Something had been released from it. The glow that he'd carried in was not there anymore. Looked at Logan. She told me, Cole said. All of it. How you found her. What you did with. He stopped. Her. With your jacket. How you got her here. How you managed all of this. He was quiet for a moment. Joe told me you knew who she was before you picked her up. Yes, sir, Logan said. Told me. And you did it anyway. I did. Cole studied him again with those active, comprehensive eyes. You're 18 years old, he said. A question. A statement that seemed to carry a weight of its own. Yes, sir. You didn't have anyone backing you up. No reason to expect protection. No insurance on this decision in any direction. No, sir. So why? Cole said. And it was the same question as before, but different this time, not a test anymore. I'm just more sincere. Something almost confused. How does an 18-year-old kid, alone, with everything to lose, make a decision like that? Logan thought about his father, the tire in the rain, about his grandmother's voice telling him a person's character was revealed when nobody was watching. My mother raised me to believe that helping people wasn't a choice, Logan said. A responsibility, and I guess he stopped. I had to find the right words. I guess I still believe that, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's complicated. He held Cole's gaze. I'm not trying to make this into anything more than it is. And I helped her, that's all. Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he did something Logan had not expected. He put out his hand and looked at it for just a moment. Then he reached out and shook it. Cole's grip was firm and held a beat longer than a normal handshake, the way handshakes hold when they're meant to mean something. Cole said, does not forget people who protect one of our own. He released Logan's hand. Theirs was measured and deliberate, not theatrical. A performance, just a statement of fact spoken by a man who treated his words as binding contracts. A threat toward you, that's not something you need to worry about managing. No, it's just the truth, and you deserve to hear it. He paused. What you did tonight is going to matter. I don't know yet how. I don't know yet in what direction, but it's going to matter. Logan didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. Sometimes silence was the most honest response available. I looked at him for one more long moment. Then he nodded that single, comprehensive nod that seemed to be a language among men who didn't use many words. He turned and went back into his wife. Logan stood in the hallway for a moment longer. Then he walked back out to the garage, picked up his wrench, back under the Silverado. Because the truck wasn't going to fix itself. Logan Hayes was, first and last, a mechanic. What Logan didn't know, what nobody outside a small circle knew yet, was that the people who had run Rebecca off the road were watching. They had been watching since she disappeared. They had been watching when the truck stopped on the mountain road. They had been watching when the lights went on in a garage in Red Hollow in the middle of the night 3 days ago and didn't go off until morning. They had a name now, Logan Hayes. And they had decided, in the way that frightened and desperate people decided things, that the 18-year-old mechanic who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time had made himself into a problem that needed to be solved. They didn't know yet what solving that problem was going to cost them. They didn't know yet what they had put in motion the moment they decided to look at a boy who helped a stranger and see a threat instead of a person. They were about to find out. The garage was quiet now. Motorcycles were gone. The town of Red Hollow had gone back to sleep. Logan Hayes lay under a Silverado in his father's garage, a wrench in the dark, with no idea that the ground beneath his ordinary life had shifted permanently, and that the next time someone came looking for him on a quiet road in Tennessee, it wouldn't be someone who needed help. It would be someone who wanted to make sure he could never help anyone again. Cole Callahan shook Logan's hand and walked back into that room. Logan went back to work. That was the thing about Logan Hayes that most people never fully understood. He didn't process things the way other people process them. He didn't need to sit somewhere quiet and talk it through or call someone and replay every moment. He processed through his hands. He processed through the familiar weight of a wrench and the specific problem of an engine that wasn't running right. It was still broken. That was something he could fix. So he fixed it. Dale came out of the back around 9 o'clock, like a man trying very hard not to look like he was checking to see if the building was still standing. He looked at Logan. He looked at the door that led to the office. Back at Logan. You alive? Dale said. Yeah, Logan said. Okay. Getting there, Logan said. Dale nodded slowly. He stood there another moment, clearly wanting to ask more, equally clearly understanding that more was not on offer tonight. He picked up a broom and started sweeping the bay floor in long, slow strokes, which was Dale's version of saying, I'm here and I'll leave you alone simultaneously. Even appreciated that about Dale more than he would ever say out loud. Cole stayed with Rebecca for almost 2 hours. When he came out the second time, one of his men came with him. They had been waiting outside the whole time, which Logan had known and had not commented on because there was nothing useful to say about it. Cole stopped in the garage doorway and looked at Logan one more time. She needs a few more days before she can travel, Cole said. Dr. Meade said the same thing, Logan said, but coming out from under the truck. She can stay as long as she needs to. The couch in the office isn't fancy, comfortable enough. Cole looked at him steadily. Understand, I'm going to have people nearby. Yes, sir. Not inside your building. I'm not going to put that on you, but nearby. Logan wiped his hands on the rag. Makes sense, he said simply. Because it did. Because Cole Callahan was not going to leave his injured wife in a stranger's garage without eyes on the perimeter, and Logan would have thought less of him if he had. Cole looked at him for another moment. That same comprehensive assessment Logan was beginning to recognize as Cole's default mode of interacting with the world. You're a strange kid, Logan Hayes, Cole said. Not an insult, more like a man making a notation in an internal ledger. I've been told, Logan said. Then Cole left, and the sound of the motorcycles faded back into the Tennessee night. Logan and Dale were alone in the garage again, with a '98 Silverado, and a silence that felt entirely different from the silence that had been there before. You want to tell me what just happened? Dale said. No, Logan said. He got back under the truck. Hand me the half-inch socket. Dale handed him the socket without another word. That was why Logan kept Dale around. The next morning came fast and brought complications with it. It was at the garage by 6:30, which was his normal time. Except nothing about that morning was normal. Rebecca was awake when he arrived, sitting up on the cot with Dr. Meade's instructions written on a notepad on her knee, going through them with the methodical focus of a person who intended to be well as quickly as humanly possible. The retired nurse was making coffee in the small kitchen corner of the office, moving with the quiet efficiency of someone who had learned long ago that busy hands and closed mouths were the best combination in a delicate situation. But Rebecca looked up when Logan came in. Good morning, she said. Hers was steadier than the night before. Color had come back into her face. Morning, Logan said. How's the leg? Asking to be removed, she said. Dr. Meade says that's normal for this stage. Logan poured himself a coffee and sat in the desk chair across from her. They looked at each other for a moment in the particular way that two people look at each other when they have been through something together that hasn't fully been spoken about yet. Cole told me, Rebecca said, what you said to him. Logan waited. You why you helped me. And you said because she was hurt. She paused. Well, you said. That's all there was to say, Logan said. I looked at him carefully. You know what Cole said to me after that? No, he said. She stopped. Seemed to be deciding something then. He said he hadn't met someone like that in 30 years, who didn't want anything. She was watching Logan's face as she said it. But sure, people like that still existed. Logan didn't know what to do with that. He drank his coffee. They do, he said finally. There's just not a lot of reason to notice us. Rebecca smiled. It was small and still a little fragile, but it was real. It changed her face completely. No, she said. I suppose there isn't. Then Logan's phone rang. Everything changed again. The number was one he didn't recognize, a Tennessee area code, not local. He almost let it go to voicemail. He answered it because something in him said to the same internal signal that had made him stop on the mountain road 4 nights ago. Is this Logan Hayes? The voice was male, flat, and deliberately neutral in the way that voices got when they were trying to remove information from themselves. Logan said, that doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you've been spending a lot of time with someone who doesn't belong to you. A pause. You should let that go. Whatever you think you're involved in, you're not. You're an 18-year-old kid in a small town, and this is none of your business. Get away and everyone's happy. Logan's hand tightened on the phone. He kept his face neutral because Rebecca was still across the room, and he didn't want to alarm her without knowing what he was alarming her about. I'm hanging up now, Logan said. That would be a mistake. Logan hung up, very still for exactly 3 seconds. Then he stood up to the door of the office and looked out into the garage bay to see if Dale had arrived yet. He had. Dale was pulling his jacket off by the tool chest. Oh, Logan said quietly. Lock the front doors and don't open them for anyone you don't personally know. All right. Dale looked at him. Yeah, Dale said with no further questions. Thank you. Logan walked back into the office and looked at Rebecca. Had read his face. She was already tense. Who called, she said. Someone who wanted me to walk away. Rebecca went very still. A pad slid off her knee, and she didn't reach for it. What did they say exactly? Logan told her. Word for word, because he had a mechanic's memory for specifics. Rebecca processed this with her eyes closed for a moment. When she opened them, she looked like a different person than she'd been 30 seconds ago, older, or perhaps just more fully herself. The version of herself that existed outside the garage office and the recovery and the coffee and the careful progress toward getting better. They're watching this building, she said. They know you have me here. Seems like it, Logan said. Again, her voice was very direct. These are not people who make idle phone calls. It was a warning, and warnings from these people come once. Okay, Logan said. Oh, no, you just got that call? Not yet. Call him, Rebecca said. Or others. Right now. Don't think about it. Don't decide whether it's worth bothering him. Call him. He needs to know. Logan looked at her. He didn't have Cole's number. He hadn't thought to get it. He had assumed in the way that 18-year-olds assume next things that whatever came next would announce itself with enough clarity that he'd know how to respond. Have his number, Logan said. Something moved across Rebecca's face. Something that would have been funny under any other circumstances. Check your jacket, she said. The one hanging on the back of that door. Logan turned and looked at the jacket. Old flannel jacket he'd been wearing since his father bought it for him. They're now stained with rain and motor oil and 3 days of everything. He reached into the front pocket. There was a piece of paper. Cole's number, written in a clean, deliberate hand. Claire looked at it. He looked at Rebecca. He put it there last night, she said simply. While you were working. He didn't say anything because she stopped. Claire. Then because Cole doesn't make a lot of speeches about the things he does. He just does them, Logan called the number. Cole picked up on the second ring. Called me, Logan said. About 20 minutes ago. Didn't give a name. He told me to walk away. The silence on the other end of the line lasted exactly 2 seconds. At the garage? Cole said. Yes. Don't go anywhere. Don't open the doors to anyone until I call you back. Keep Rebecca calm and keep her away from the windows. There are no windows in the office, Logan said. Their half-second pause. Good, Cole said. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. He called back in 7. I'm sending 2 of my people to the garage. They're going to be outside. Inside, I meant what I said about not putting that on you. They'll be there within the hour. In the meantime, is there anyone at that garage I should know about? Cole didn't recognize last night? Just me and my assistant Dale, Logan said. But doesn't know the details, and he's not going to ask. Good man, Cole said. What about your grandmother? Logan felt something cold move through him. Oh, about 2 miles from here. Is she alone? Logan didn't answer immediately, and his non-answer was the answer. Give me her address, Cole said quietly. Have someone check on her, discreetly. She won't even know anyone's there. Logan gave the address. Hers. He gave it without debating whether it was the right thing to do. The alternative, not telling Cole, and being wrong about whether Edna Hayes was in any danger was not a risk he was willing to carry. After he hung up, he sat for a moment with the phone in his hand. Rebecca was watching him. She had been watching him the whole time. Careful, specific attention of hers. You're scared, she said. Accusatory. Just observational, the way someone states a fact that they're not judging, Logan said. But not for yourself, she said. He looked up. My grandmother is 73 years old, and she lives alone, and she has nothing to do with any of this. I know, Rebecca said. Her voice, when she said it, carried a weight that Logan couldn't fully interpret yet. Something that sounded like guilt, and something that sounded like a decision being made, and something underneath both of those things that sounded like the beginning of a story he wasn't being told. Not yet. Rebecca, Logan said. Who are these people? Colorado. He held up a hand before she could answer with the safe version. Not who does Cole say they are. Not what the official version is. Who are they? And why did they run you off that road? Rebecca looked at him for a long moment. Enough that he thought she was going to refuse. Enough that he started preparing himself for the refusal. Then she started talking. What she told him lasted 23 minutes. Quietly excused herself. Logan didn't move from the desk chair. He listened the way he listened to engines, for the specific tone beneath the noise, for the thing underneath the thing, for the truth inside the facts. The version was this. There was a man named Victor Greer, operated out of Knoxville. He had spent the better part of 4 years trying to establish territory in the mountain corridor between Knoxville and the Virginia border territory that the Hells Angels Tennessee chapter had held, but absolutely for over 2 decades. Cole had refused every approach Greer had made. Violently, Cole was not. Rebecca was careful to emphasize, violent man by disposition. Whatever people assumed, he was a principled man, and his principles included the belief that territory wasn't negotiated from a position of manufactured crisis. Greer had decided to manufacture a crisis anyway. Running Rebecca off the road was designed to do 2 things: off balance emotionally and make it look to Cole's own people, rival clubs, to anyone watching, like Cole couldn't protect his own. Sure. Like he was vulnerable, like the chapter's grip on that territory was loosening. It was a psychological move as much as a physical one. And it would have worked, Rebecca said this without flinching, clarity of someone who understood the strategy, even while being on the receiving end of it, if Logan hadn't stopped on the mountain road. Logan sat with that for a moment. So by helping you, he said slowly, I accidentally disrupted Greer's plan. You did more than disrupt it, Rebecca said. You prevented Cole from getting the version of events that Greer wanted him to get. A version where I disappeared and nobody knew what happened, and Cole started making decisions from fear and grief instead of from information. She met Logan's eyes. You gave Cole the truth, and with the truth, Cole can respond to this from a position of strength instead of a position of loss. So Greer knows that, Logan said. Well, he called. Yes. And that's why I'm now a problem for him. Yes, Rebecca said again. And she said it with a steadiness that was not comfortable or pleasant, but was honest. Logan had always respected honesty more than comfort. Up from the chair and walked to the door and back again, one circuit, the man measuring a room. Then he stopped. Okay, he said. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Okay, Logan said again. Sir. He said it the way he said most things, without performance, drama, just the flat acknowledgement of what was real and what needed to be dealt with. I'm in the middle of something I didn't choose to be in the middle of. Walking away is no longer an option because the people I'd be walking away from won't let me. The situation? More or less, Rebecca said carefully. Cole knows who Greer is and what he wants. Cole has known for 2 years. Okay, Logan said a third time. Quiet for a moment. Then we wait for Cole's people to get here, and we keep the doors locked, and we don't do anything stupid. What we can do right now. Rebecca looked at him for a long, specific moment. Then she said something he hadn't expected. She said, how are you this calm? He thought about it genuinely. Performing calm, actually trying to understand his own internal state accurately enough to describe it. Not sure I am calm, he said finally. I think I'm just. He paused. I think I'm just someone who grew up knowing that panicking doesn't fix anything. You panic, you still have the same problem. You're just panicking and have the problem. So you might as well just have the problem. Rebecca stared at him. Very quietly, she said, Cole is going to like you a lot. Logan Hayes. 2 of Cole's men arrived 40 minutes later. Watched through the crack of the bay door as they took up positions on either side of the building, unhurried, professional, doing it in a way that didn't draw attention from the street, which for 2 men in full Hells Angels cuts was actually more impressive than it sounds. Rotterdamers, they made themselves look like they were simply parked, like men taking a break, like nothing in particular. I thought, these are people who have done this before. The world I accidentally stepped into is a great deal more organized than I understood. I really hope Edna Hayes stays inside today and watches her stories and doesn't decide this is the morning to walk to the library. Their mother was, to Logan's perpetual combination of pride and exhaustion, the most stubbornly mobile 73-year-old in the county. Here a text, please stay home today. I'll explain later. Love you, she responded. 3 minutes later, Logan Michael Hayes, what did you do? He texted back, nothing bad, I'll explain tonight. Please stay home, she responded. I'll make pot roast. You're explaining everything. He put the phone in his pocket and went back to work on a carburetor that had been waiting 3 days for his attention, because sometimes the only thing that kept your brain from spinning off its axis was giving your hands something to do. Or passed, then another. The morning moved with the strange quality that time had when you were waiting for something but didn't know its exact shape. It was Dale who saw it first. He came into the office at a pace just slightly faster than his normal walk, not running, but the specific almost run of someone who wanted to look like they weren't alarmed and wasn't fully succeeding. His head in the door. Logan, he said. Logan looked up from the carburetor. There's a truck parked across the street, Dale said. About 15 minutes. It's not one of the bikes. There's a truck, and there's someone sitting in it who hasn't gotten out. Logan set down the carburetor. Of truck? Dark blue, late model. No plates I can see from here. Logan stood up. Here with Rebecca, he said. He walked to the bay door and looked out through the side window, and that gave him an angle on the street without exposing himself. Was right. Dark blue truck, 200 feet down the road, facing toward the garage. The driver was sitting still, reading, not on a phone, not doing anything that people ordinarily do when they park and wait. Just sitting watching. Logan's jaw tightened. He reached in his pocket and called Cole. On the corners, there's a truck across the street, he said when Cole picked up. Blue. No visible plates, driver's just sitting. I see it, Cole said immediately. Which meant one of Cole's men had already called it in. What do we do? Logan asked. Nothing, Cole said. Yet. He's watching, and he wants you to know he's watching. That's the point. If you react, he gets what he wants. What does he want? Logan said. He wants you scared, Cole said simply. He wants you to make a mistake. Make one. Logan looked at the truck for another moment. Oh, Logan said. My grandmother lives 2 miles from here. The guy, is he there? He's been there since 40 minutes ago, Cole said. She's fine. She answered the door at about 20 minutes ago and went back inside. She's fine, Logan. The thing that happened in Logan's chest when Cole said that the release of a pressure he hadn't fully acknowledged he was holding was one of the most physically specific moments of relief he had ever experienced. Like a knot unwinding from the inside of his sternum. Thank you, Logan said. Don't thank me, Cole said. Rudely. Just factually, in the way that a man says something he means. On me. All of it. You shouldn't be in this position. The only reason you're in it is because you made a decision 3 nights ago that any decent person would make, and you're carrying the weight of that now. I don't take that lightly. Logan didn't know what to say. Don't do anything stupid, Cole said. I'm going to resolve this today. Where you are. He hung up. Logan stood at the window looking at the blue truck for another minute. He did the thing Cole had said to do, which was the thing Logan's instincts had already been telling him. He walked back into the office, picked up the carburetor, and went back to work. Rebecca had heard enough to understand. He's going to resolve it, she said. It was not quite a question. There, said Logan said. Do you believe him? Logan thought about Cole Callahan, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he had placed his number in Logan's jacket pocket without making a moment of it, the way he'd had a man outside Edna Hayes' door 40 minutes after being given an address. Logan said, I believe him. At 12:17, the blue truck drove away. At 12:43, Cole called back. Well, for today, Cole said. They're pulling back. Greer is being talked to, and he's being made to understand that he miscalculated the dimensions of this situation. Logan processed that carefully. To by who, he said. People whose words carry weight, Cole said. All you need to know right now. Okay, Logan said. I need to ask you something, Cole said. And his voice had shifted slightly less operational. Or personal. The way a voice shifts when it's moving from tactics to something that actually matters. Okay, Logan said again. When this is fully resolved, when Rebecca is well and on her feet, and this thing with Greer is handled, what do you want? Logan frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean exactly what I said. What do you want? From me. What do you want in exchange for what you did? Logan sat with the question. Understood what Cole was doing. The man was offering the thing that he was most accustomed to offering, which was tangible compensation, because that was the language his world spoke. He was being generous in his way. He was trying to give Logan something. The problem was that Logan didn't want anything. Not in the way Cole meant. I don't want anything, Logan said. I mean that. I don't want money, and I don't want protection, and I don't want whatever else would normally be on the list. I helped your wife because she needed help. That's where it starts and ends for me. The silence on the other end was very long. There's people, Cole said slowly. When they say that, negotiating, they're telling me what they want by pretending they don't want it. I'm not most people, Logan said. I'm not negotiating. I'm 18 years old, and I run a small garage in Red Hollow, Tennessee, and I want to keep doing that's all I want. Another long silence. There's garage, Cole said. Yes, sir. You took it over after he died. Yes, sir. How old were you? 15. Cole was quiet. The quality of that quiet was different from the operational quiet of a man making decisions. This was the quiet of a man sitting with something that had surprised him. My mother died when I was 17, Cole said. I didn't handle it the way you apparently handled yours. He paused. Handled it badly. For about 10 years. Logan didn't respond to that because it wasn't the kind of statement that wanted a response. The kind of statement that wanted space. I'll call you when Rebecca can be moved safely, Cole said. Then? Yeah, I hear you, about not wanting anything. A pause. I'm going to remember this anyway, whether you want me to or not. He hung up. Logan held the phone for a moment. He thought about what Cole had just told him, that small, guarded detail about his own father, offered briefly and without elaboration, something that had slipped out past better judgment and had been allowed to slip because Logan somehow understood. Cole had decided Logan was someone it was okay to let it slip to. And found Dale. The truck's gone, Logan said. I'll be okay today. Dale exhaled a long breath that suggested he'd been holding it for a considerable amount of time. Dale said. Oh, good. That's good. Yeah, Logan said. Home early today if you want. I'll close up. Dale shook his head. I'll stay, he said. He picked up his wrench. You shouldn't be here alone. Logan looked at her. At Dale, who was 34 years old and had never asked for anything except his paycheck and Fridays off, who had come to work every day for 3 years without being asked and without making a thing out of it, who had handed Logan the socket last night and asked no questions and swept the floor and stayed. You, Logan said. Don't get sentimental, Dale said. I'm staying for the overtime. Logan almost smiled. Almost. The day moved on. Rebecca slept in the afternoon, which Dr. Mead had said she needed to do, and which she'd been resisting with the stubbornness of someone who did not like lying still while other people managed situations on her behalf. When she woke, Logan brought her soup that Martha had made and sat with her while she ate it. Not about Greer or Cole or the phone calls or the blue truck, ordinary things. About Red Hollow, about Logan's father, the specific loneliness of small towns and the specific comfort of them. Rebecca's life before she'd met Cole, which had been, she said with a dry directness that Logan liked, considerably less eventful and considerably less interesting. Do you regret it? Logan asked. Life being over? Rebecca thought about it genuinely, with the reflexive positivity of someone who had decided what they were supposed to feel. Oh, she said finally. I regret some of the things that came with it. By itself. She paused. Cole is a good man. I don't believe that because of what he is and what the club is. Here's a good man. And I think she stopped. What? Logan said. I think meeting you is going to change something in him, she said. Not sure what exactly, but something. Logan shook his head. Nobody, Rebecca. I'm a mechanic. I'm not going to change anything in a man like Cole Callahan. Rebecca looked at him over her soup. Already have, she said simply. You just don't know it yet. Logan drove home that night after 10. He drove the long way. There's the mountain road. Because he wanted to be dramatic about it, but because he needed the 15 minutes of quiet, and because the self, if he was honest with himself, he needed to drive that road again in the dark and confirm to himself that it was still just a road. That it had not become, in his memory, something larger than it was. So a road, dark and wet from earlier rain, absolutely empty in both directions. He stopped at the exact point where he had stopped 4 nights ago, turned off the truck engine, and sat in the silence for a moment. At the tree line, at the dark between the trees, about the scream he had heard, about the 4 seconds he had sat there counting, every reasonable argument in the world lined up on one side of a scale, about what had been on the other side. Not bravery, not heroism, not the calculation of risk and reward. A woman in pain, in the dark, in the rain, just the absolute simplicity of that, complete sufficiency of that one fact as a reason for everything that followed. He sat there for 3 minutes. Then he started the truck and drove the rest of the way home, almost to his grandmother's house, where the lights were still on and the smell of pot roast reached him before he even opened the door. Logan Hayes was waiting at the kitchen table with 2 plates and a look on her face that said she had been patient all day and was done being patient now. There, she said, everything. Eat first. Logan sat down. Pot roast was extraordinary, as it always was, always had been his entire life, because Edna Hayes believed that food was not decoration but sustenance, and she made it accordingly. When the plates were clear, he told her everything. All of it. Showed the scream, tourist, there's the jacket, covers, Rebecca, Cole, the phone call, the blue truck, Dale, the soup, all of it in the plain and unembellished way that Logan told all things, apology and without theater. When he finished, Hayes sat for a long time with her coffee cup held in both hands, sitting at the table. Then she looked at her grandson. I did the right thing, she said. From the beginning to the end, every single choice you made was the right one. I put myself in danger, Logan said. I put you in danger, maybe, Edna said. And maybe if you'd kept driving, that woman would have died in those woods. She set the cup down carefully. I raised you to understand that you don't get to weigh your own comfort against someone else's survival and come down on the side of your own comfort. I told you that when you were 7, and I'm telling you now. She met his eyes. All right, Logan, every time. Logan nodded. He felt something loosen in him, not the mechanical loosening of resolution, the deeper, stranger loosening of a person who has been carrying a question for days and has finally been given permission to set it down. Oh, he said. Yeah. Cole Callahan, the man I told you about, he said. Logan stopped. Heard again. He said I showed him something he hadn't seen in 30 years. One who didn't want anything. Edna was quiet for a moment. True, she said. Did you not want anything? Logan thought about it. I wanted her to be okay, he said. That was all I wanted. Edna nodded slowly. She reached across the table and put her hand over his, a gesture she made rarely, when something was important enough to punctuate physically. Then you got what you wanted, she said, and that'll have to be enough. For now, Logan looked at her hand on his. He turned his over and held it. Outside, somewhere down the street, close enough to be deliberate, far enough to be discreet, an engine idled very quietly. Of Cole's people keeping their word. Logan Hayes sat in his grandmother's kitchen, holding her hand, listening to an engine that meant someone was watching over them without being asked. The world is more complicated than I knew, and more decent than I expected. He held his grandmother's hand and let the night be quiet. Rebecca Callahan walked out of the garage office on her own 2 feet 5 days after Logan carried her out of the woods. Easily, not without the crutch Dr. Mead had sourced from somewhere Logan didn't ask about. her own feet, under her own power, with her jaw set at that particular angle, Logan had come to recognize as her baseline expression when she was doing something that hurt and had decided it wasn't going to stop her. Logan was in the bay working on a brake job when she appeared in the doorway. He looked up. He didn't say anything about the crutch or the careful way she was distributing her weight or the fact that Martha was hovering approximately 2 feet behind her with both hands slightly raised, the universal posture of a person prepared to catch something. Up, Logan said. I'm up, Rebecca confirmed. She looked around the garage with the focused attention of someone cataloging an environment they hadn't been able to fully see before. Eyes moved from the tool chest to the lifts to the workbench to the old photograph. Logan kept tacked above the bench his father, years ago, grinning in front of the same garage with a wrench in his hand and oil on his face. She looked at the photograph for a moment. Your father? She said. Logan said. She nodded once. Then she looked at Logan directly. Paul is coming today this afternoon. He wants to talk to you. Logan set down the brake pad. Hey? He said. Officially, Rebecca said. Not the way he came before. This is going to be different. Logan looked at her. Different how? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, measuring something in her mind. Last time Cole came here, he came as a husband looking for his wife, operating on emotion, even if it didn't look like it from the outside. He's coming as the president of the club. She held Logan's gaze. Those are 2 very different visits. Logan absorbed that. He picked the brake pad back up, turned it over in his hands, put it back down. Should I be worried? No, Rebecca said immediately. And more carefully, but you should be prepared. Prepared for what? She looked at him for a long, specific moment. Prepared for the fact that what you did has weight inside the club that goes beyond what you understand yet. What you think you did stop on a road, help a stranger, and what the club sees when they look at what you did are 2 very different things. Logan opened his mouth. Argue with me about it, Rebecca said. I'm not telling you to be someone you're not. I'm telling you to understand the room you're walking into. There's a difference. Logan closed his mouth. He thought about that for a moment. Okay, he said. What time? 3 o'clock. He went back to the brake job. Went back inside. Martha exhaled loudly enough that Logan could hear it from across the bay. Arrived at 2:58. This time the formation was different, significantly larger than the night Cole had come to the garage the first time. Was standing in the bay door when they pulled in, and he did count this time because the number mattered. 31 bikes, not the protective formation of a husband coming to retrieve his wife. This was something else. This was organized and deliberate and formal in a way that Logan didn't have language for yet, but understood in his body the way you understood things that were older than language. Engines cut simultaneously. The silence that followed was absolute. Cole was at the front this time. He got off his bike and stood for a moment, looking at Logan across the forecourt. In the daylight, he looked different than he had. In the evening light of their first meeting, not smaller, more particular, more real. The gray at his temples caught the afternoon light. The wear on his face had a history to it that Logan could almost read, where you could sometimes almost read the history of an engine from the particular way it wore. Behind Cole didn't move. They sat on their bikes or stood beside them, and their quiet had a quality to it attentive, deliberate, that made the air feel different. Cole walked toward Logan and held his ground, not out of bravado. Logan Hayes had never had much use for bravado, but because his feet told him to stay put and he trusted his feet. Cole stopped 4 feet away. He looked at Logan steadily. The club doesn't forget, Cole said. Yes, sir, Logan said. I meant it, Cole said. But I realized I was speaking in general terms. I'd like to be more specific now. He paused. May I come inside? Logan stepped back from the doorway. Us, he said. Cole turned and said something brief and quiet to the man. Nearest to him, a large man with a dark beard who had the particular stillness of someone whose job was to be very attentive without drawing attention to it. Then nodded once. Cole turned back and walked inside. They went to the office. Rebecca was already there. Her, sitting upright in the desk chair with her crutch leaning against the wall beside her, posture the careful neutral of someone who had decided not to signal anything one way or the other. There had been quietly relocated to the kitchen corner. It was in the bay, and Logan had told him 40 minutes ago that whatever he heard or didn't hear this afternoon, his job was to keep working and keep quiet. And Dale had said, understood in the voice of a man who had learned that some things were genuinely none of his business. He looked at his wife for a long moment when he came in. Something passed between them, wordless and fast and completely private. Hand of two people who had been together long enough that language had become optional for certain kinds of communication. I looked at Logan. Sit down, he said, please. Logan sat on the edge of the cot. Paul remained standing, which Logan understood was not a power move. It was simply how Cole thought. He was a man who processed standing up. I've spent the last 5 days looking at what happened, Cole said. Not just the incident itself. All of it, the road, timing. How Rebecca ended up on that road at that time alone. The call you received. The truck that sat outside your building. He paused. I've been looking very carefully at you. Logan waited. They have no record, Cole said. No history of anything complicated. Sure. You work, you take care of your grandmother, you keep to yourself. Every measure available to me, you are exactly what you appear to be. An 18-year-old kid running a small garage in a small town on a dark road because he heard someone scream. Cole held his gaze. People don't do that, Logan. I want you to understand that a factual statement about the way human beings actually behave. People do not do what you did. They keep driving, and not because they're cowards or because they're bad people, because they're rational, because the risk calculation comes out the wrong way. Because the safest thing is always to keep moving. I didn't stop because of a calculation, Logan said. That, Cole said. That's the point. He was quiet for a moment. In my world, you earn trust. You earn it over years. Earn it through what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do and how you behave when it costs you something's real. Steve, it works. And there are no shortcuts. He paused. There are moments rare, and I mean genuinely rare, where someone shows you who they are so completely in a single action that the years of earning aren't necessary. Because you have already seen everything you need to see. The office was very quiet. Logan felt the weight of what Cole was building toward and stayed still under it, the way you stayed still under something heavy that hadn't landed yet. He wants to do something for you, Cole said. To repay a debt, I'm not framing it that way, because that framing reduces what you did to a transaction. And what you did was not a transaction. We want to do something because we want to, because the people outside, 31 of them, came here today, not because I told them to come. And what happened? And they came. Logan looked at him. To come, he said slowly. Every one of them, Cole confirmed. All of them agree with each other about much. They agreed about this. He paused. We want to help your garage. With money, I'm not talking about money, because I already know what you'll say about money. There are 31 men outside who work with their hands. Fabricators, welders, electricians, who know how to build things and fix things. Cole glanced through the open door toward the bay, with its aging equipment and the particular weariness of a building that had been maintained by one person working too hard for too long. Fudge could use some attention. Logan stared at him. Fix up my garage, Logan said. We want to invest in someone who deserves it, Cole said. Difference. Your father built this place. You kept it running at 15 years old. You kept it running, and you kept your grandmother, and you kept yourself, and you did all of it without asking anyone for anything. Cole's voice was steady and unperformative, the voice of a man stating facts. The least we can do is make sure the building doesn't fall down around you while you're doing it. Logan was quiet for a long moment. At Rebecca, she was watching him with an expression he couldn't fully read, something careful and warm and slightly tense. Person watching something delicate and hoping it doesn't break. He looked back at Cole. I don't know how to respond to that, Logan said. You don't have to respond to it, Cole said. You can just say yes or no. Logan sat with the simple architecture of that for a moment. Yes, he said, and thank you. Cole nodded. A comprehensive nod. Good, he said. Then, with a shift in tone that was subtle but unmistakable from formal to something slightly warmer, more thing. Logan waited. Cole reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and produced a folded piece of paper. It out to Logan. Logan took it, unfolded it. It was a name and an address, written in the same clean, deliberate hand as the number in the jacket pocket. Victor Greer has been handled, Cole said. I want you to understand what that means and what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean anything violent. It means Greer has been made to understand by people whose understanding he respects that his operation in this corridor is finished, that the calculation he was making about leverage and territory has been corrected. Going back to Knoxville, Cole paused. The people who physically ran Rebecca off the road are being addressed through proper legal channels. I want you to know that. Logan looked at the paper and address meant nothing to him. What is this? He said. Cole said, is the name and location of the man who made that phone call to you. For Greer, and he was specifically tasked with intimidating you into walking away. Another pause. Already been told to leave Red Hollow and not return. The address is where he was staying. I thought you should have it not to do anything with. Just so you know that you're not looking over your shoulder anymore. The threat has a name and a location, and both of those are now under control. Logan folded the paper and put it in his pocket. What about the phone call? The flat, neutral voice. You're an 18-year-old kid in a small town, and this is none of your business. What about the blue truck sitting across the street, that had moved through him when Cole had asked about Edna, about the fact that he had not, in 5 days, a full night, he exhaled. Thank you, he said again. And this time it came from somewhere deeper. Cole looked at him for a long moment. Such sleep have you been getting? He said. Logan almost laughed, not out of humor, but out of the strange relief of being asked a straightforward question about a real thing. After several days of managing abstractions, he said. Tonight you will, Cole said simply. It's handled. Then Cole did something that Logan hadn't expected. He sat down in the old desk chair, the one Rebecca had vacated when she'd moved to stand beside the window. He sat down the way a man sits when he's done with the official part of a conversation and wants to be a person for a minute. Tell me about your father, Cole said. Logan blinked. Father. The garage. Cole gestured at the wall. The photograph was visible through the open door. Told me about the picture, about what you said. He held Logan's gaze to hear it from you. And Logan, who did not talk about his father to people, a particular part of himself behind a door that he opened only for his grandmother, and never fully even for her, sat in the silence for a moment and understood that Cole Callahan was not asking as an interrogation. He was asking the way men asked when they recognized something in another person's story that resonated with their own. He talked about his father the way he had never talked about him to anyone outside the family, about the garage and the motor oil smell and the specific click of an engine turning over right. About the afternoon his father had pulled him out of his third-grade classroom to help with a brake job because the regular assistant was sick. Logan had held the flashlight for 3 hours and felt, at 8 years old, like the most important person in the world. But the tire in the rain and the stranger and the lesson Logan hadn't understood was a lesson until years later when his father was gone and the lesson was all that was left. Listen, he didn't interrupt. He didn't perform empathy. He just sat there and listened with the attention of someone for whom attention was not a casual or cheap thing to give. And finished, Cole was quiet for a moment. My father ran a different kind of operation, Cole said finally. Like a garage. But the same principle, you do the work. You take care of your people. You don't ask for anything you didn't earn. He paused. I died when I was 17, and I did exactly the wrong thing with it for the better part of a decade. I told you that before. You did, Logan said. I'm telling you again because I want you to know that what you did at 15, keeping this place running, that is not a small thing, a thing that most people could do. Cole met his eyes directly. built a good mechanic, but he also built a good person. And that's rarer. Logan didn't have words for that. He hit the floor for a moment, and when he looked up, Cole had already stood reading the room with that quiet precision of his. On the garage next Saturday, Cole said. With your permission, you have it, Logan said. Cole put his hand out. Logan shook it the same grip as before. The same held beat, the same quality of meaning something. Cole went back out to the forecourt, and Logan followed at a distance. Up and next was something he would carry in him for the rest of his life. Cole said something to the men quiet. Logan couldn't hear the specifics, and what happened was a single movement, 31 men, some standing, some still on their bikes. Then every one of them at the same moment gave Logan Hayes a nod. A performance, not in unison like a choreographed thing. After another, a ripple moving through the formation, each man making his own deliberate choice to make the same gesture. So a wave, like a vote. Logan stood there and didn't know what to do with his hands. He stood there and felt weight of 31 choices pressing on him in a way that was not uncomfortable but was very large. He nodded back. Once, to all of them, because it was the only appropriate response and because he didn't have words for what was happening, and because his grandmother had raised him to meet gestures with gestures. Religions started, one by one, then all at once, building back from nothing to everything. And then they were gone, and the street was empty. Dale appeared in the bay door, looking like a man who had been very committed to not watching and had not entirely succeeded. Okay, Dale said. Yeah, Logan said. What was that? Logan looked at the empty street for another moment. I'm not entirely sure, he said honestly, but I think it was something good. He went back inside. He found Rebecca standing in the office, looking at the photograph on the wall. Turned when she heard him come in. He likes, she said. Oh, he doesn't show it the way most people show things. Likes you. He seemed genuine, Logan said. That got me. He wasn't performing any of it. Cole never performs, Rebecca said. He decided early in his life that performance was a waste of energy that could be spent on actually doing things. One of the things that makes him very good at what he does, and occasionally very difficult to live with. She said it with a dry warmth that made it clear. The difficulty was something she had made her peace with. Logan moved to the workbench. He picked up the brake pad he'd set down hours ago, looked at it, set it back down. Rebecca, he said. Others. Yeah. What did you mean before that Cole coming today was different from when he came the first time? Rebecca looked at him steadily. When he came the first time, he came for me. When he came today, she paused, choosing her words with that characteristic care. He came for you. Logan let that settle. He said. Because the club needs to believe in something occasionally, Rebecca said quietly. They need to be reminded that decency exists, that someone can do the right thing for no reason, except that it's the right thing. She held his gaze. You gave him that, Logan. Whether you meant to or not. He stood with that for a moment. Then Dale called from the bay that the brake job wasn't going to finish itself. Logan walked back out to the garage, and the afternoon moved on with the particular ordinariness of a Tuesday that had contained several extraordinary things. The week that followed was quieter than the week before. Not quiet in the way that felt peaceful. Quiet in the way that felt like the pause between a held breath and the next one. Two things happened in that week that mattered. The first was that Edna Hayes called Logan on a Wednesday morning while he was under a Ford F-150. Logan, she said when he picked up, there's a man sitting in a car across from my house. Logan's stomach dropped. He was out from under the truck in one motion. What does he look like? He looks perfectly normal, and the car is very clean, Edna said, with the specific patience of a woman who found alarm exhausting. And I know you're going to panic, so I'll tell you the rest. He rang my bell this morning and introduced himself and told me his name was Eddie, and that he was a friend of Cole Callahan, and that he was going to be nearby for a while just to make sure I was comfortable. He was very polite. Logan exhaled. He brought a pie, Edna added. Got you a pie, Logan said. Apple, Edna said. It was very good. I believe he made it himself. A pie. Logan, this man has a tattoo on his neck the size of a dinner plate. I know. Grandma. He also held my grocery bag while I unlocked the door and addressed me as ma'am every single sentence. Grandma, I'm not complaining, Edna said. I'm informing. There is a heavily tattooed man named Eddie who makes excellent apple pie. Watching my house, I want you to know that I have decided this is fine. Another pause. Well, I am going to need you to explain to me, at some point, my grandson managed to acquire guardian angels from a motorcycle club. I'll explain Sunday, Logan said. Roast again, Edna said. Please, Logan said. She hung up. Logan stood in the bay for a moment with the phone in his hand, and then he did something he hadn't done in a while. He laughed. It was brief, and it was quiet, and it was entirely genuine. The second thing that happened was that Dale came to Logan on Thursday with the account books. This was not unusual. Dale handled the administrative side of the garage as part of his responsibilities. Monthly reviews were normal. What was unusual was that Dale set the books on the workbench and put his finger on a specific line and said, any preamble or softening, Logan, we've got about 6 weeks of runway. Logan looked at the number. He had known it was bad. He hadn't known it was that bad. Pudge had been losing ground slowly for 2 years, not catastrophically, not in any single dramatic way, but in the accumulated way that small businesses lost ground when one person was trying to do everything and couldn't do all of it perfectly. Equipment that needed upgrading. Customers who had started driving to the bigger shop in Millbury because they had a machine that could do a 30-second diagnostic that Logan and Dale were turning down because they didn't have the capacity. 6 weeks was not a crisis, but it was close enough to one that Logan had to look at it directly. Looked at it directly. Okay, he said. Dale waited. Nothing else came. He said, what are we going to do? Logan thought about the conversation with Cole. The 31 men with skills. About Cole's precise language, invest in someone who deserves it. About how Logan had said yes, and meant it, and then spent the rest of the week telling himself that he'd only said yes to the building repairs and not to anything that felt like charity. About the difference between pride and stupidity. About his father, who had been a proud man, but not a stupid one. Cole's people are coming Saturday, Logan said. Let me talk to Cole before then. He called Cole that evening. Third, he explained the situation directly and without decoration, because Cole was a man who respected directness, and because being indirect about money felt dishonest in a way Logan couldn't tolerate. Cole was quiet for a moment. What do you need? He said. There's a garage to be competitive, Logan said. I need the diagnostic equipment to be modern enough that I'm not losing work to Millbury. He stopped. I need what every small business needs, which is for the equipment to match the work that's available. Oh, that's not charity, Cole said. That's infrastructure. I know, Logan said, but I'm not framing it as charity. I'm telling you what the problem is and letting you tell me whether it's something you're willing to help with. Cole was quiet for another moment. Then my brother-in-law runs a commercial equipment supplier out of Nashville. Fast installation. I'll call him tonight. Cole, Logan. And there it was again, that shift in Cole's voice, inspirational to something more direct and more human underneath. Understand what this costs you to ask. I understand that for a man like you, telling me tonight took more out of you than carrying Rebecca through the forest did. I'm telling you, he paused. You are never in any future version of this life going to have to feel ashamed about asking me for help. Hear me? Logan held the phone. Yeah, he said. There a moment. Yeah, I hear you. Good, Cole said. Saturday, 9 o'clock. Tell your man Dale to clear the bay. Saturday arrived the way important days often arrive, quietly, like any other morning, with the same light and the same sounds, and no external indication of what it intended to become. They came at 9:02, not 31 this time. 16, the specific 16 who had the skills that matched the work, would learn later, because Cole had assessed the garage's needs before Saturday and matched men to tasks with the operational precision he applied to everything. One of them drove a flatbed truck. On the flatbed was equipment that made Dale stop mid-stride in the bay doorway and just stand there with his mouth slightly open for a solid 4 seconds. Dale started. Yeah, said the man unloading it, who had grease on his hands already at 9 in the morning, and introduced himself as Tucker. Uh, Calibrated it myself last night. He looked at Dale with the professional respect of one mechanic for another. Is you going to stand there, or are you going to help me get this inside? Dale helped him get it inside. And over the next 8 hours was something that Logan would struggle to describe accurately for years afterward, because the accurate description sounded improbable, and the improbable description sounded sentimental. There's 16 men working, not the performative working of people doing someone a favor, the focused, specific working of men who were good at things and knew it and took quiet satisfaction in the application of that knowledge. They were not silent. There was talking, and there was the natural noise of people working together, the specific shorthand of shared trade, particular humor of men who spent their lives with mechanical things. Her and Dale found each other's rhythm within the first hour and were finishing each other's sentences by early afternoon. Watched with the feeling of a man watching two animals who speak the same language discover each other. A man named Reyes rewired the electrical panel in the bay quietly and without fuss in about 4 hours. When he was done, he told Logan, "Well, Tone, you'd tell someone, the weather, that the old panel had been a fire risk for at least 3 years. And thought about the last 3 years, about his father's garage, all the nights he'd been alone in the bay under one car or another, while that panel quietly considered becoming a disaster." "Tell you," Logan said. Reyes shrugged. "It's what I do," he said. "You want some coffee?" That was how most of the conversations went that day. Practical. No performance of generosity from anyone. No elaborate gratitude expected from Logan. Just work, particular dignity of work done well. And occasionally, someone would look up from what they were doing and say something brief to Logan about the garage, his father's photograph, about Red Hollow, about things that had nothing to do with any of it, and then go back to the work. All arrived at 3 in the afternoon. He walked the space with the quiet attention he brought to everything, observing without interrupting, nodding occasionally at things he saw. Next to Logan, who was helping Tucker run a new diagnostic line to the code reader station. "How does it feel?" Cole said. Logan looked around the bay, at the new equipment properly installed and calibrated, at Reyes' cleaned up wiring, at the 2 men who were replacing the worn garage door mechanism on the second bay, something Logan had been meaning to do for 8 months. At Dale, who was in the middle of a conversation with Tucker that had clearly already covered a great deal of ground and was showing no signs of concluding. Like my father would have approved," Logan said. Cole looked at the photograph. "Quiet for a moment. Tell me something," Cole said. "Did he know this community? People in town, not just customers." "Yeah," Logan said. "He knew everyone. He was the kind of person who always knew what was going on with people. Who needed what? He did a lot of work for free, honestly. Then he should have, financially." Cole nodded slowly. There's a woman 3 streets from here," he said. "They told me. She's 81, lives alone. Her car has been sitting in her driveway for 4 months because she can't afford to have it looked at, and she doesn't trust the shop in Millbrae." Logan looked at him. "Oh, Mrs. Durbin," he said. "I've been meaning to." "One of my men went by this morning," Cole said. "His own." He looked at the car. The ignition switch failed. "It's a $40 part and 2 hours of work." Logan was quiet. "Come back tomorrow to fix it," Cole said. "I'm not telling you this to make a point about anything. I'm telling you because..." He stopped. Something moved across his face that was harder to read than his usual expressions. "I think you should know what happened when your town saw us arrive here. What it did to people inside the club, how it reminded them of things they'd forgotten about themselves." He paused. "You think you didn't change anything. You think you just stopped on a road and helped a stranger. The version of events that followed from that, the things it set in motion, those aren't small." Again, Logan looked at the garage around him, at the men working, the afternoon light. "Mrs. Durbin cried for 3 days after her car stopped," Logan said quietly. "Told me that at the diner. She said it was the first time in 40 years she felt stuck." "She'll be unstuck tomorrow," Cole said. Logan had no answer for that. Cole put a hand briefly on Logan's shoulder, not heavy, not lingering, just present. "Good garage," he said simply. And he walked toward Tucker and Dale, who had somehow accumulated a small audience of three other men around their conversation. Radas. And within 30 seconds, Cole was in the middle of it. Cole Callahan was, despite every reputation to the contrary, who liked people. Logan watched him for a moment. Then he picked up his tools and got back to work. By 6 o'clock, the bay was transformed in ways that were real and measurable and would show up in the books within 2 months. Was calibrated and operational. The wiring was sound. The bay door worked. The code reader station was fully integrated. Race had, as a seemingly casual afterthought, replaced the failing ventilation system, which had been Logan's next major worry after the equipment. Packed up at 6:15, they were efficient about it. Coloradas, they didn't linger over goodbyes or to make the moment into something ceremonial. Gave Dale his personal number with the words, "You have questions about the new reader, call me." And Dale took the number with the particular reverence of a man receiving something he hadn't known he needed. Last one out was a man Logan hadn't spoken to directly all day, heavy-set, 50s quiet in a way that was comfortable rather than withdrawn. Up at the bay door on his way out and looked at Logan. "My son has a garage in Knoxville," he said. "He's been thinking about selling it. Doesn't have anyone to pass it to." He held Logan's gaze briefly. "Garages should stay garages. That's all." Then he walked out to his bike. Logan stood in the bay for a moment after they were gone. Cole came up beside him. They stood together, looking at the transformed space. Then Dale said, "Yeah, I've been working here for 11 years. There was alive. I know. I've never..." Dale stopped. "Not again. I mean, I genuinely do not have." He stopped again. A breath. "I have no idea how to process today." "Me neither," Logan said. "Weird or bad weird?" Logan looked at his father's photograph on the wall. Garage that his father had built with his hands and his savings and his stubbornness. And that Logan had kept alive through 3 years of 18-hour days and careful accounting and the particular determination of someone who has decided that love sometimes looks like not letting a thing die. Large looked back at him, new and clean and operational, and for the first time in 3 years, genuinely capable of competing. "Weird," Logan said. "The best kind." Dale nodded. He picked up his jacket. "I'll see you Monday," he said. Out. Logan stayed a while longer. He stood in the middle of the bay in the evening, quiet, and let himself feel, not think about, analyze, just feel what the day had been. His phone buzzed. From a number he didn't recognize at first, they realized it was Tucker. Diagnostic Reader has a calibration setting for older vehicle ECUs under the secondary menu. Dale knows where it is. "Good garage, Logan." Logan stared at the text for a moment. Then he texted back, "For everything today." Tucker responded in 40 seconds. "Don't mention it. Your dad built something worth keeping." "Where did you?" Logan put his phone in his pocket. He turned off the bay lights. He stood in the dark for one moment, breathing the smell of his father's garage motor oil and clean metal and all the years layered underneath. Then he walked out into the evening and got in his truck. He drove home the long way. He didn't stop on the mountain road this time. He drove past the point where he'd stopped 10 days ago, early enough to acknowledge it, but without drama, ceremony. Just a young man driving past a place where something true had happened, carrying it forward with him into whatever came next. It was clear and cold and full of stars. And somewhere in Red Hollow, an 81-year-old woman named Mrs. Durbin was going to wake up tomorrow and find her car fixed. More than the equipment, more than 31 nods, more than Cole Callahan's handshake was the thing Logan held onto as he drove home through the Tennessee dark. That was the thing that felt like it mattered, Mrs. Durbin's car was fixed by 8:30 on a Sunday morning. Logan knew this because Mrs. Durbin called him at 8:31, and she was crying. And for one terrible second, he thought something had gone wrong. Then he understood that she was crying the way people cried when something went right that they had stopped believing could go right, that specific, undignified, completely honest kind of crying that had nothing to do with sadness and everything to do with relief that had been held too long. Someone fixed my car, she said between the crying. Someone fixed my car. I went out this morning to get the mail and it was just fixed. And there was a note under the wiper that said the part was on them and to drive safe. Link sat on the edge of his bed in the early morning and listened to an 81-year-old woman cry about her car, about his father, stopping in the rain for a stranger, what his grandmother, Ada, said about character being revealed when nobody was watching others. And he thought, this is what it looks like when it spreads. A decent thing touches another, and keeps going. That's good, Mrs. Durbin, he said. I'm really glad. Do you know who did it? She said. Of mine, Logan said. Good people. She cried a little more. Then she said she was going to drive to church for the first time in 4 months, orders, and that she was going to say a prayer for Logan's friends. And Logan said that was very kind of her, and they hung up. Saul sat there for a moment, in the quiet of his childhood bedroom, in his grandmother's house, listening to Edna moving around in the kitchen below. A cup of coffee came up through the floor. Outside, Eddie's car was parked at the usual spot across the street. Eddie, who had been there every morning for 10 days, who made apple pie and held grocery bags and apparently had a quiet and extensive knowledge of automotive ignition switches, and thought 3 weeks ago, my life was exactly the same as it had been for 3 years. I genuinely cannot map the distance between that morning and this one. Got dressed and went downstairs. Edna was at the stove. She looked at him. When he came in with the particular attention she had given him since he was small, the looks that assessed and cataloged and filed simultaneously, that took everything about him and made its conclusions before he'd said a word. She said. It was not a question. It was a satisfied notation. First full night in 2 weeks, Logan said. He poured coffee. Mrs. Durbin called. Edna turned from the stove. Car's fixed. Edna was quiet for a moment, turned back to the stove. When she spoke, her voice had the careful neutrality of a woman managing her own emotions with the practiced efficiency of 7 decades. Well, she said, that's something, isn't it? Yeah, Logan said. There. They ate breakfast together without talking about anything important. Of the things Logan valued most about his grandmother. She understood that not every moment needed to be filled with significance. Sometimes the most important thing 2 people could do together was simply occupy the same space and eat eggs and drink coffee and let the morning be ordinary. The morning didn't stay ordinary for long. Cole called at 10:15. Logan was back at the garage by then, running the new diagnostic equipment through its paces on Dale's personal truck, partly to learn the system, and partly because Dale's truck had been making a sound for 3 weeks that Logan hadn't had time to properly investigate. "I have a problem," Cole said. He didn't preface it or soften it, as Cole never did either of those things. Greer didn't pull back as completely as I was told. There are 2 of his people still in Red Hollow. They've been here since Thursday. Logan's hand tightened on the diagnostic tablet. "You know what? Watching," Cole said, "specifically watching you and watching the garage. You said it was handled," Logan said. Sir. He said it without accusation, just the plain statement of the discrepancy. "I was given bad information," Cole said. And the way he said it told Logan everything about how Cole felt about being given bad information. That situation is being corrected. But right now, today there are 2 of Greer's people in your town to know about it before you hear about it some other way. Logan processed this for exactly 3 seconds. "Sir, do you know where they are? We have a general location." "Not exact yet. Are they a danger?" "Right now, today? Probably not today." Observing. A pause. "But Greer is a man who changes plans quickly when he feels pressured. He is currently feeling a great deal of pressure. Probably not today is not the same as definitely not today." "What do I do?" Logan said. "Same as before," Cole said. "Keep your doors locked. Know where your grandmother is. Don't be in isolated places alone. A beat. Logan, I also need you to hear something else." "Okay. This has gone further than it should have. When Greer ran Rebecca off the road, that was about territory and leverage. That his man called you and the truck sat outside your garage that was about intimidation. I could manage both of those things through channels that didn't require escalation. Cole's voice was steady and deliberate. Two men sitting in your town 10 days after being told to leave, that is Greer communicating something different. There's him saying he is willing to cross a line he hasn't crossed before. What line? Logan said he thought he already knew. The line between pressure and direct action, Cole said quietly. And I'm not going to let that happen. The way Cole said those last 6 words, not loudly, but with performance, just with the absolute flatness of a man stating the most certain fact available to him, made something settle in Logan's chest. Comfort. Exactly. Not the absence of fear, but the particular steadiness that came from knowing someone capable was standing in the same direction as you. Oh, Logan said. What does not going to let that happen mean? Specifically, a brief silence. It means I'm coming to Red Hollow today. More people than I brought on Saturday. And it means Greer is going to understand fully and completely that what he is attempting to do in this town is finished. Is anyone going to get hurt? Logan said. If Greer makes reasonable decisions, Cole said. Not, I am going to make very easy for him to do. And if he doesn't make reasonable decisions, then I will make them for him, Cole said. Without elaboration. Logan was quiet for a moment. About Red Hollow, the cracked pavement, the 3 stoplights, the diner with the bad coffee, people he had known his whole life, going about their ordinary Sundays. About Mrs. Durbin driving to church. He thought about the distance between the world Cole inhabited and the world Logan's town inhabited. He had, through one decision on a dark road, created a bridge between those 2 worlds that neither of them had expected or prepared for. Oh, Logan said. Red Hollow is a small town with people in it who have never been involved in anything like this. You come, he stopped. Found the right words. Needed to be handled in a way that doesn't make them feel like their town has become a war zone. Can you do that? The silence on the other end was longer than Cole's usual silences. Yes, Cole said finally. I can do that. Another pause. And I want you to know I respect that you asked that. As people in your position would be asking me to come in as large and visible as possible. As large and visible feels like protection. You asked me to be careful with people who have nothing to do with this. They're my town, Logan said simply. Cole said, they are. A beat. I'll be there at 2. Can you be at the garage? I'll be there, Logan said. He hung up and looked at the diagnostic tablet in his hand. Dale's truck had a failing oxygen sensor. The new equipment had caught it in 4 minutes. It would have taken Logan 45 minutes of manual testing with the old setup. Under any other circumstances, the elegance of that would have satisfied him completely. Set the tablet down. He called Dale. I need you to not come in today, Logan said when Dale picked up. Things happening this afternoon, and I don't want you here for it. A pause. Dale, please take the day. I'll explain Monday. Another pause. Complicated thing? Again. The tail end of it, Logan said. Hope. You hope, Dale said with the flatness of a man who had decided hope was not as reassuring as Logan seemed to think it was. When it's done, Logan said. Dale sighed, the specific sigh of a man who had signed up to be an auto mechanic and had found himself adjacent to something considerably larger than that. Fine, he said, but I'm calling you at 4 o'clock, and if you don't answer, I'm driving over there. Fair enough, Logan said. His grandmother next. Told her to stay inside. Eddie was outside, and to let him know if she needed anything, he would explain everything at dinner. She said, missing a beat, should I make the pot roast again? And he said, yes, or please, because if this afternoon went the way it was supposed to go, he intended to eat an enormous amount of pot roast in a state of profound relief. I love you, Grandma, he said. I love you too, she said. Claire, anything stupid. I'm not doing anything, Logan said. Cole Callahan is doing something. I'm just going to stand there. Logan Michael Hayes, Edna said. Summer is standing there while Cole Callahan does something. Is not nothing. She hung up and put his phone in his pocket, looked around the empty bay, and went to make himself a cup of terrible office coffee, because the morning was going to be long and the afternoon was going to be longer. And there was absolutely nothing to do right now except wait. Waiting was, in Logan's opinion, the hardest possible thing. He could work through fear. He could work through grief. He could work through uncertainty and complication, and the particular exhaustion of keeping too many things running at once. Waiting sitting still, with something unresolved, something for his hands to do and no engine to fix, was the one thing that reliably tested every quality he had. He spent the morning doing what he always did when he was trying to control his own mind. He found work. He serviced the new diagnostic equipment per the manual Tucker had left. Minimized possums, he reorganized the tool chest by side function, which he'd been meaning to do for 6 months. He wrote up the quote for a transmission rebuild that had been sitting on his desk for a week. He called 2 customers with appointment reminders for the following week. Ordinary work, the quiet, methodical assertion of a normal life alongside whatever today was going to be. 12:40, something happened that he hadn't anticipated. A car pulled into the garage forecourt. Not a biker. Anyone Logan recognized immediately. A man in his late 50s, heavyset, with a face that was expressive in the specific way of someone who was trying hard to look neutral and wasn't quite succeeding. Out of the car and stood in the forecourt, looking at Logan through the open bay door. Logan walked out. "Can I help you?" he said. The man looked at him for a long moment. He looked at the garage. He looked at the photograph, barely visible through the open bay door. He looked back at Logan. "You're the kid who helped Rebecca Callahan," the man said. A question. Logan went still. He measured the man, the car, clean mid-range sedan. No visible patches, no colors. Hands loose at his sides. Body language that read as tense but not coiled. The tension of someone carrying something uncomfortable rather than someone preparing for something physical. "Are you?" Logan said. "My name is Frank Greer," the man said. "Victor Greer is my brother." The name landed in the air between them like a physical object. Logan did not move. He ran through his options in the time it took to breathe twice. Cole was 2 hours away. His phone was in his pocket. Her paw behind him had everything in it except another person. Was standing in full daylight in an open forecourt in the middle of a town where Cole's man Eddie was 2 streets away, watching Edna Hayes' house. "Hey," Logan said. His voice was steady. He made sure of that. "What do you want, Mr. Greer?" "I want to talk," Frank said. "Oh, just talk." He held up his hands briefly, not quite a surrender gesture, but adjacent to one. "I'm not here the way my brother's people have been here. Came alone. I drove from Knoxville this morning." "Why?" Logan said. Frank looked at him for another long moment. Then he did something unexpected, down at his shoes. The look of a man collecting something from somewhere inside himself that he'd been carrying with difficulty. "My brother's about to do something very stupid," Frank said quietly, "and nobody in his organization has the standing to tell him so." I thought, he stopped. "I thought the person who started all of this might be the person worth talking to." Logan studied him carefully. "You think I can stop whatever your brother is planning?" "I think," Frank said, "a relationship with Cole Callahan that didn't exist 3 weeks ago and that if anyone can communicate to Cole that a de-escalation is in everyone's interest, including my brother's, whether he knows it yet or not, it might be you." Logan was quiet for a moment. "Not talk to Cole directly, because Cole Callahan won't take a call from a Greer right now," Frank said. "If I show up in front of him, without an intermediary, I'm not going to get a conversation. I'm going to get something considerably more one-directional." "And you think I'm an intermediary?" Logan said. "I think," Frank Greer said carefully, "that you are the only person in this situation both sides look at without the weight of history between them. You're not a biker. You're not one of Greer's people. You're an 18-year-old mechanic who helped a woman in the woods." He met Logan's eyes. "You are the only person involved in this who nobody has a reason to distrust." Logan stood with that for a moment. What about Rebecca saying, "You are the only person in this situation who nobody has a reason to distrust"? And he thought about how he had not expected to become a pivot point between worlds and how the universe had not particularly cared about his expectations. "What do you want Cole to know?" Logan said. Frank exhaled a long breath that suggested he'd been holding it for the entire drive from Knoxville. Will pull his people out of Red Hollow completely. in exchange for Cole communicating to the people who have been pressuring Victor's Knoxville operation that the pressure eases. Victor knows he lost the corridor. He's not trying to recover it. He's trying to make sure the consequence for losing it doesn't destroy what he still has. Logan processed this carefully. You're asking Cole to call off whatever he has in Knoxville in exchange for Victor stepping back from Red Hollow entirely. Yes, Frank said. They authorized you to offer this? Frank hesitated. A second. 2. Victor authorized me to make contact, he said. The specific terms are what I believe he would accept if they were presented to him clearly. Logan looked at him. Mr. Greer, he said, are you telling me you came here today without your brother's full knowledge of what you were going to offer? Frank was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. He said finally, that my brother is a stubborn man who has spent his whole life making things worse by refusing to be the one who blinked first. I am telling you that I have watched that stubbornness cost him things he couldn't afford to lose. For 40 years, his voice was steady, but something was visible underneath it, something that was grief, or exhaustion, or the long accumulated weight of watching someone you loved make decisions you couldn't stop them from making. Drove here today because someone has to blink first, and Victor won't. So I am. Logan stood in the silence that followed that statement for a long moment. About what Cole had said on the phone, this is Greer saying he is willing to cross a line he hasn't crossed before. About what Cole would do at 2 o'clock with a significant number of men in a small town full of people who had never asked for any of this. About Mrs. Durbin driving to church. He thought about the 3 stoplights and the bad coffee and every ordinary person in Red Hollow going about their ordinary Sunday. On a decision. Come inside, Logan said. I'm going to make a call, and you're going to be in the room while I make it. He wants to talk to you directly. You talk to him directly. If he says no, you get in your car and you go back to Knoxville and you figure this out a different way. Huh? Frank Greer looked at him. Something moved across his face, surprise, maybe, or relief, or the particular expression of a person who came expecting resistance and found something else entirely. Frank said. They went inside. Logan called Cole. Picked up on the first ring. Is something wrong? He said immediately. Cole Callahan had learned to read Logan's calls by now. All before 2 o'clock on a day like today, carried information just by existing. They have someone at the garage, Logan said. Frank Greer. Victor's brother. He drove from Knoxville this morning. He wants to de-escalate. The silence that followed was very precise. On the phone, Cole said. Logan handed the phone to Frank Greer. There were his hands. Frank took it with both hands. The way you held a thing you understood could break. It to his ear. This is Frank Greer, he said. Logan walked to the bay door and gave them the room. He stood in the bay with his back to the office and looked at the street at the Sunday quiet of Red Hollow, at the few cars going past, at the ordinary, unremarkable life of a small town that had no idea what was being negotiated 15 feet behind him. It lasted 11 minutes. Logan tracked it by the clock on the bay wall without meaning to. He heard Frank's voice occasionally, not the words, measured, direct, not defensive. He heard the long pauses that meant Cole was talking. He heard the moment when Frank's voice shifted from careful to something that sounded like relief. Before Frank appeared in the bay door that whatever had been said had moved in the right direction. Held out the phone. He wants to talk to you, he said, and took it. Cole, you let Victor Greer's brother into your garage, Cole said. On your own judgment. Yes. Another precise silence. Walk me through it, Cole said. How you made that call, Logan told him. In the forecourt, and there's the name, the assessment, conversation. He told it plainly and completely, because Cole deserved the complete version, and because Logan had nothing to hide about any of it. He finished. Cole was quiet for a moment. Then, you know what you did just now? I took a risk, Logan said. A calculated risk with good information and good instincts, and it paid off, Cole said. Well, look, Logan, that's judgment. A pause. Offer is workable. Not the way he presented it. Victor doesn't have the authority to negotiate what Frank implied, but the underlying request is workable. Like, opening this door is the important thing. I can work with the door that's open. So you're not coming at 2, Logan said. Coming at 2, Cole said. But differently than I planned. I need to see Frank in person, and I need it to happen in a neutral location. A pause. Lodge is neutral. Yes, it is, Logan said. Is that right with you? Yes, Logan said. Logan Cole's voice shifted. Understand that what you just did letting Frank in, giving me the option of a conversation instead of a confrontation that saved this afternoon from going in a direction that nobody wanted. Understand that. I didn't do anything complicated, Logan said. I just talked to a man who drove a long way to try to stop something bad from happening. That seemed worth a phone call. Cole made a sound that other man might have been a laugh. Yeah, he said. To a man. A beat. I'll see it too. He hung up. Logan handed the phone back to his pocket and looked at Frank Greer. Frank was leaning against the workbench with his hands in his jacket pockets, and he looked like a man who had been running on adrenaline for several hours and could feel it starting to leave him. "Men," Logan said. "I know," Frank said. "I heard his side of it." He looked at Logan. "Here." "Don't thank me yet," Logan said. "Thank me after 2 o'clock." Frank almost smiled. "Fair enough." There was a silence between them that was uncomfortable in the specific way that silences were uncomfortable when 2 people had just been through something intense together and hadn't yet figured out how to be normal with each other. "Can I ask you something?" Frank said. "Sure," Logan said. "Why did you let me in?" "You don't know me. You know my brother has been sending people to watch this building and threaten you. On the name Greer and what it means in this situation." He held Logan's gaze. "People in your position don't open the door." Logan thought about it. "Because you drove from Knoxville on a Sunday to try to stop your brother from making a mistake," he said. "Because you were scared and it showed and you came anyway." "Because," he paused. "Because I've learned in the last 3 weeks that the people doing the right thing aren't always the people you expect. And the person standing in front of you doing a hard thing deserves to be heard, regardless of their last name." Frank looked at him for a long moment. "How old are you?" he said. 18, Logan said. Was quiet. He looked at the photograph on the wall. "There?" he said. The same question Rebecca had asked, standing in the same doorway. "Yeah," Logan said. "He'd be proud of you today," Frank said. "A performance or a platitude." He said it with the simple conviction of a man who had spent his whole life watching the difference between people who did things and people who didn't, and had made up his mind about which side of that line Logan stood on, and didn't answer. He didn't have an answer that would do justice to what that sentence cost him to hear. He looked at the photograph for a moment and then looked away. "Make coffee," he said. "It's terrible, but it's hot." "I'll take it," Frank said. Arrived at 2:03. He brought 6 people. Not the formation of Saturday, not the operational display of the first night. 6 people, 8 bikes, including Cole's, parked with the same practiced discretion Logan had noticed before. Cole walked in alone. He looked at Frank Greer across the office. It was complicated, not hostile, not warm, of 2 men who had been on opposite sides of something for long enough that the geometry between them was intricate and layered and not going to simplify in a single afternoon. Cole walked in, and he sat down and he looked at Frank Greer and said, "Talk." And Frank talked. Logan sat against the wall and didn't say anything for the first 40 minutes. He just listened. He listened to the negotiation, the real one, not the approximation that Frank had brought from Knoxville, but the version that emerged when 2 sides stopped posturing and started describing actual precision, what they needed and what they were willing to give. He listened to the places where the conversation went hard, where Cole's voice went flat and Frank's went careful, and the air in the room changed temperature. He listened to the places where something gave, where a position softened, not because someone had been defeated, but because they had been heard. He was watching, at a distance of 10 years and 10,000 experiences, what 2 adults did when they decided that continuing a conflict was more expensive than finding a way through it. 42-minute mark, Cole said something that stopped the conversation. "There's a woman in this town," Cole said. 81 years old. Broke down 4 months ago, and she couldn't afford to fix it. My man, when he showed up at her door unannounced on a Sunday morning, that it was the first time in 40 years she'd felt stuck. He held Frank's gaze. Those people had been sitting in this town for 10 days, watching a kid who fixed cars and helped a stranger. That woman is 3 streets away. She doesn't know your brother's name. He doesn't know mine. A pause. Whatever we decide in this room today, the terms, the agreement, all of it, the only thing that actually matters to me right now is that she doesn't have to be scared in her own town. Do you understand that? Frank was very still. Yes, he said quietly. I understand that. Then we have enough common ground to work with, Cole said. Conversation continued for another 30 minutes. Of it, there was no document and no handshake. Logan understood, watching, that the thing that had been agreed to existed in a form more binding than paper, a particular currency of men who used their word as their only legal instrument. Victor Greer's 2 people left Red Hollow by 5 o'clock. Alan knew this because Cole's man, Eddie, texted him the confirmation with a precision that suggested Eddie had been tracking the situation with considerably more detail than his apple pie baking exterior suggested. Frank Greer left shortly after 4. He stopped in the bay door on his way out and looked at Logan one more time. You ever need anything in Knoxville, he said. And he said it in the way of the world Logan had glimpsed over the past 3 weeks, not casually, as a social pleasantry, as a statement of debt and intention. I appreciate that, Logan said. Frank nodded. He walked to his car. He drove away. Cole stood in the bay with Logan for a few minutes after. The afternoon was cooling toward evening, and the light was the particular gold of a Tennessee October, kind of light that made even ordinary buildings look like they meant something. Years, Cole said, mostly to himself. What? Logan said. Victor and Frank Greer. Victor has been running things one way or another for 40 years, and Frank has spent 40 years cleaning up behind him. Cole looked at the space Frank had occupied. Today is the first time Frank stepped in front of him. Logan was quiet. Hi today, Cole said. It wasn't a question directed at Logan, exactly more something Cole was working out in real time, the way he did with things that surprised him. Because someone had to, Logan said. And Frank decided he'd rather be the one. Cole looked at him. That's what you said about yourself 3 weeks ago, when I asked why you stopped on that road. Logan blinked. He hadn't made that connection consciously. I guess it is, he said. Cole studied him for a moment with those comprehensive eyes. But I think, Cole said. What? I think you didn't just help Rebecca that night. I think you set something in motion that has been running through every person it touched since then. Cole paused. My club, Victor Greer, there is town. You stopped on a dark road and you set something running. Whatever it is, this thing that you set in motion, it's been pushing people towards something they already wanted to do but didn't know how to start. Logan thought about it the way he thought about mechanical things, looking for the specific logic of it. Was in effect the sequence. I didn't do any of that intentionally, he said. Oh, Cole said. That's why it worked. He looked at Logan steadily. Intentions are cheap. Actions move things. You acted and things moved. The evening settled around them. Cole said something Logan hadn't expected. There's someone who wants to meet you, Cole said. That day. But soon, he paused. The men from Saturday, the ones who worked on the garage, talking about Red Hollow, about this town and what it is and what it needs. He paused again. There are people in this club who grew up in places like this, who left because there was nothing keeping them here. And they've been asking themselves, whether there's something they could do for a town that reminds them of where they came from. Logan looked at him carefully. Of something, he said. I don't know yet, Cole said honestly. That's what needs to be figured out. But the desire is real, from real people, and I thought you should know it's happening. He held Logan's gaze. Because whatever it becomes, it starts with what you did. Logan stood with that for a moment. About the town, the cracked pavement, the 3 stoplights. He thought about the businesses that had closed in the last 5 years, young people who had left, the slow and particular weariness of a place that had been carrying its own weight for a long time without enough hands to help. about what it might mean for those hands to show up. Oh, he said. Yeah, I want to be clear about something, Logan said. Oh, is not a project. The people here they're not a story someone tells about what a motorcycle club did for a small town. They're people, they have pride and they have history, and they're not going to accept help that makes them feel like a charity case. Cole looked at him. The expression on his face was something that Logan had not seen there before, something that might have been a man whose face was less controlled, a smile. You just said, Cole noted, almost exactly what I said to you when you tried to refuse help for the garage. Logan opened his mouth. Closed it. Yeah, Cole said, I know. He put a hand briefly on Logan's shoulder. Make sure it's done right. You have my word. He walked out to his bike and followed to the bay door. The 6 men with him were ready. Engines turned over one by one. Cole looked back at Logan from the bike. "Hey, dinner," Cole said, "next week. Rebecca wants to cook for you and your grandmother." Not negotiable, apparently. Logan felt something loosen in him again, that same loosening as before. The one that felt like being allowed to set something down. About Edna Hayes' pot roast, and Rebecca Callahan's precise way of speaking, and the particular, unexpected warmth of a world he had stumbled into through a decision made in the rain. There will be there, Logan said. Cole nodded once. He rode away. Logan stood in the open bay door until the sound of the engines faded. Then he turned and looked at the garage, his father's garage, rebuilt and updated, and humming with the clean functionality of equipment that was working the way it was supposed to work. He looked at the photograph. His father, grinning, wrench in hand, on his face, standing in front of the same building that still stood, 20 years older now, and full of new things and still, recognizably itself. Okay, Dad, Logan said quietly. Just that, just those 2 words, the way you spoke to people who couldn't hear you but needed to be spoken to anyway. Off the lights. He locked the bay door. He got in his truck. He drove to his grandmother's house, where the pot roast was already filling the whole street with the smell of something good, and the lights were on, and Eddie was across the street in his car, probably with pie. Edna met him at the door. She looked at his face the way she always looked at his face, of reading everything in it without being told anything. Done, she said. The bad part is done, Logan said. She nodded slowly. Then she stepped aside to let him in. Eat, she said. He went inside. Behind him, the Tennessee evening was quiet and ordinary, and full of the sounds of a small town going about its Sunday, and absolutely nowhere. In it was a dark blue truck sitting still on a road. Absolutely nobody was watching. And that the uncomplicated quiet of an ordinary Sunday evening was the best thing Logan Hayes had felt in 3 weeks. The Sunday dinner at Cole and Rebecca's happened exactly 1 week later. Hayes wore her good dress, the blue one she reserved for church, an occasion she privately decided mattered, and she did not say a word about it when Logan noticed. She simply picked up her purse and said, "Let's go," in the voice that meant the conversation was already over. And drove. He didn't say much on the way. Edna didn't either. They had arrived over the past 3 weeks at a new kind of silence together, not the comfortable silence of ordinary life, getting richer, the silence of 2 people who had been through something real and didn't need to keep talking about it to know they'd been through it together. Rebecca met them at the door before they knocked. She was standing without the crutch. Easily, Logan could see the careful distribution of her weight, felt tension in her jaw that meant it cost her something. Upright, on her own. She looked at Logan and said, "Simply, I wanted you to see this." Logan felt something move through him that he didn't have a word for. Something that was not pride exactly and not relief exactly. Somewhere between the two and underneath both. "You look good," he said. "I feel like I've been put back together with parts from a different machine," Rebecca said. "I'm standing." She smiled, that real smile, the one that changed her face completely. Then she looked at Edna, Mrs. Hayes. Edna looked at Rebecca for a long moment, assessing each other with the particular directness that women of certain generations brought to first meetings, thorough, very honest. Then Edna said, "You raised a good man here, in the way you treated my grandson. Thank you for that." Rebecca blinked. It was the only moment in 3 weeks that Logan had seen Rebecca Callahan genuinely caught off guard. Inside, Rebecca said, after a moment, Cole's been in the kitchen for 2 hours, and he's not going to admit he's nervous about it. Cole was not nervous. Or if he was, he had processed it completely by the time they sat down. The man who came out of the kitchen carrying a serving dish was unhurried and focused and entirely himself. He shook Edna's hand and addressed her as Mrs. Hayes and meant it. And Edna looked at him with the same direct assessment she'd given Rebecca, then passed across her face that Logan had seen only a few times in his life, the expression she got when she decided someone was worth respecting. They ate. They talked. Not about Greer, not about territory or clubs or the past 3 weeks. Talked about ordinary things in the way that people talked when they were testing whether they could be ordinary with each other. Asked about Logan's father. Edna told him, in the particular way she told stories precise and unsentimental and full of love underneath both qualities. Listened the way he always listened. Rebecca watched Logan across the table with that careful warmth of hers. Bugs sat in the middle of all of it and felt, for the first time in 3 weeks, genuinely at rest. Cole put down his fork and looked at Logan directly. I need to tell you something, Cole said, and I need you to hear it completely before you respond. So set down his own fork, went still beside him with the practiced stillness of a woman who had learned that certain moments required perfect quiet. Voted last Thursday, Cole said. All of them. The one votes. He held Logan's gaze. We're opening a chapter fund. Red Hollow. Not a charity, a working fund for small businesses and residents who need access to resources they can't reach through normal channels. Repairs, supplies, and to emergency situations. Looking at the Hayes Fund. The silence in the room was absolute. Logan stared at him. You can't put my name on something like that, Logan said. Already did, Cole said. Simply. Without negotiation. Oh, Logan. And Cole's voice had that quality again, the complete theatrical certainty of a man stating the most irrevocable fact available to him. Your name is already on it. Because 31 men voted, and not one of them voted no. And the reason every single one of them said yes was the same reason of what you did on that road. Your name is what makes it mean something. He paused. Don't take that away from them. Logan felt the weight of that press against him, not uncomfortably, undeniably. He thought about Tucker and Reyes and the man whose son had a garage in Knoxville. About 31 nods in a forecourt on a Saturday afternoon. About men who grew up in towns like Red Hollow and left because there was nothing keeping them. It meant that they wanted to send something back. He looked at Edna. She was looking at him with an expression he had seen only once before the morning after his father's funeral. Corners, when she had sat across the breakfast table and looked at him the same way. The expression that meant, I see who you are, and I am not surprised. I am so proud of you I can barely hold it. Okay, Logan said. His voice was not entirely steady. He didn't try to make it steady, because some things didn't deserve a steady voice. Cole nodded once. The conversation moved on, because Cole understood that the moment didn't need to be extended to be honored. Just 3 months later, the Hayes Fund helped a family on Birch Street replace a furnace that failed in January. The diner owner, the one with the bad coffee and the best pie in 3 counties, repair a refrigeration unit that had been failing since summer. Helped a retired teacher named Carl get his truck road legal again so he could drive his wife to her medical appointments in Millbury without depending on anyone. It did not become a different town. It was still the same cracked pavement and 3 stoplights and familiar faces and slow pace. Something in it had shifted the particular way a community shifted when it remembered it was a community. When it remembered that the person next door had weight and the person down the street had history, and neither of them should have to carry everything alone. Then Hayes kept fixing cars. He kept taking the long way home on Thursday nights. He did not stop telling himself that he was just a mechanic because he was just a mechanic, and he was proud of that, and his father had been proud of that. There was nothing small about making broken things work again. Understood now, in the way you understood things that had been demonstrated to you by actual events rather than told to you by people. Thought the size of a life was not measured by what you intended to do with it. It was measured by what you did when the moment asked something of you and you answered. He had answered, and the answer had rippled outward through Cole and Rebecca, through 31 men who voted unanimously on a Thursday night, through Frank Greer driving from Knoxville on a Sunday morning, through Mrs. Durbin crying about her car, through every small ordinary life in a small ordinary town that was now, quietly and without fanfare, a little less alone. Years from now, people in Red Hollow would still tell the story. They would tell it the way small towns told their best stories gathered around tables, lost between generations, details shifting slightly with each telling, but the core of it staying absolutely true. Of the blonde boy who worked at his father's garage and stopped on a dark road when everyone else kept driving. And mean it, because it was true. As it happened, because an 18-year-old kid with grease on his hands and his father's wrench and his grandmother's voice in his head had made one decision in the rain, and that decision had proven quietly, undramatically, completely that the most powerful thing a person could offer the world was not strength or money or influence. It was simply this: the willingness to stop, to look at another person in the dark and say, I see you, I'm not leaving. Logan Hayes had said that once to a stranger in the woods, and the stranger's world had come back to him, not with anger, not with danger, but with 31 votes, and a fund with his name on it, and a plate of pot roast across from a man who had learned, and at some cost, that decency was still the most durable currency available to anyone. That was the story of Red Hollow. That was the story of the boy who couldn't walk away. And it was absolutely irrevocably true.